HFY story outline. Rejected by everyone, she looked at the human and asked, "Will you be my husband?" Part 1. The outcast princess set up an introduction. Princess Zarathol of the Vorthok Empire stands before the Galactic Council's marriage tribunal, her crystalline blue skin shimmering with humiliation. The seventh suitor, this month a pompous Centaurian, Duck, rejects her with barely concealed disgust. Her curse makes her untouchable. She involuntarily absorbs and amplifies the negative emotions of anyone she touches, making physical contact agonizing for other species. In the corner of the tribunal chamber, Captain Marcus Chin of the Terran Diplomatic Corps watches with growing anger. He's seen how the galaxy's civilized species treat those they deem defective. As Zarathal's father, the Vorthok Emperor, announces he'll disown her if she can't find a mate within one lunar cycle, Marcus steps forward. The chamber falls silent. Everyone knows humans are the galaxy's newest species, barbaric upstarts who barely qualify for council membership. Zarothal's desperate eyes meet his, and she asks the question that will change everything. Human. Will you be my husband? Part 2. The unlikely bond development and discovery. Marcus accepts, shocking the entire council. The Vorthok Emperor, desperate to avoid the shame of a disowned daughter, reluctantly agrees to a trial bonding period. As Marcus and Zarothal begin their awkward courtship, something unprecedented happens. Her curse doesn't affect him. Humans are emotional chaos incarnate compared to other species. Marcus's psyche is so naturally turbulent with contradictory feelings that Zarathal's ability becomes irrelevant. She can't amplify what's already at maximum intensity. For the first time in her life, she can touch someone without causing pain. Their growing relationship scandalizes the galaxy. Other species whisper that humans are too primitive to feel proper pain, that Marcus is using her for political gain. But Zarathal discovers something else. When she touches Marcus during moments of genuine emotion, she doesn't just absorb negativity, she experiences the full spectrum of human feeling, including their incredible capacity for hope, love, and determination. Meanwhile, political enemies plot to use this perverse union to destabilize both the Vorthok Empire and humanity standing in the council. Part 3. The test of fire-rising conflict, the hegemony of Kethmer, a coalition of pure species, declares the human Vorthok. Union, an abomination that threatens galactic genetic integrity. They engineer a crisis, framing Marcus for stealing Vorthok military secrets and demanding Zarathal renounce him publicly or face exile alongside him. But the couple has been preparing. Zarathal has learned to channel her abilities through Marcus's emotional resilience, creating a psychic feedback loop that can overwhelm attackers. Marcus has been studying Vorthok combat techniques and discovers that human unpredictability makes their rigid fighting styles useless. When Kethmer assassins attack during a diplomatic dinner, Marcus and Zarathal fight as one entity. Their attacker's intentions through emotional resonance, while he adapts instantly to changing tactics. The galaxy watches in shock as two defective beings demolish elite Kethmer warriors. The performance terrifies the council. If humans and other lesser species can form such bonds, what does that mean for the established hierarchy? Part 4. The revolution begins. Climax and transformation, the Kethmer hegemony demands the council choose: exile humanity and dissolve the marriage, or face economic and military sanctions. Most council members prepare to capitulate, but Marcus reveals his true purpose. He wasn't just a diplomat, he was gathering intelligence on how the galaxy's superior species treat their outcasts. Across a dozen worlds, humans have been quietly befriending and allying with rejected individuals, disabled Xenorons, elderly Kaitar past their usefulness, hybrid offspring deemed impure. Marcus broadcasts their stories galaxy-wide, showing how the Council's member species systematically oppress anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definitions of perfection. Zarathal uses her abilities to project the emotional truth of these testimonies, forcing viewers to feel the pain of systematic rejection. The broadcast triggers uprisings on multiple worlds as oppressed populations demand recognition. The Kethmer hegemony mobilizes its fleets, declaring humans a plague that must be eradicated. Before their emotional contamination spreads further, the galaxy faces its first war in centuries, with humanity's ragtag alliance of misfits standing against the established order. Part 5. The New Paradigm Resolution. In New Beginning, the war is brief but decisive. While the Kethmer fleets are technologically superior, they can't adapt to humanity's chaotic tactics or the psychological warfare enabled by human-alien emotional bonds. Zarathel, now bonded not just to Marcus but to a network of human-allied outcasts, can coordinate attacks through shared emotional resonance across light years. The decisive battle comes when Marcus leads a desperate assault on the Kethmer homeworld. Instead of trying to conquer, he broadcasts a simple message. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to free the people you've forgotten. The planet's own oppressed populations rise up, guided by humans who understand what it means to be underestimated. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council restructures. The old hierarchy based on genetic purity and rigid social roles crumbles, replaced by a system that values diversity and adaptation. Marcus and Zarathel's marriage becomes the template for new kinds of alliances. Between species, the story ends with their wedding, a truce ceremony this time, not a political arrangement. As representatives from dozens of previously marginalized groups attend, Zarathel realizes that Marcus didn't just save her from rejection. By showing her that human love thrives on acceptance of flaws rather than elimination of them, he helped her save an entire galaxy from its own prejudices. The final scene shows their first child, a hybrid who will grow up in a galaxy where being different is finally seen as strength. It's not weakness. Core HFY themes: human emotional resilience and adaptability. Our ability to find strength in diversity and chaos. The power of accepting outcasts and underdogs, human unpredictability as a strategic advantage, love and acceptance, conquering systematic oppression. Part 2. The unlikely bond of Orthoc Imperial Palace was buzzing with gossip 3 days after Marcus's shocking proposal. Servants whispered in the hallways about the human who dared to ask for the princess's hand. Noble families argued in their private chambers about whether Emperor Cardal had lost his mind by accepting the engagement. Marcus walked through the crystal corridors of the palace, still amazed by its beauty. Everything was made of blue and silver crystal that caught and reflected light in magical ways. The walls seemed to glow from within, and the floor sparkled like frozen water under his boots. He was on his way to meet Princess Zarathel for their first official courtship session. The Emperor had agreed to a 30-day trial period. If Marcus and the princess could prove they were truly compatible, the marriage would be approved. If not, the engagement would be broken, and Zarathel would lose her right to the throne forever. Marcus found the princess in the palace gardens, sitting beside a fountain made of singing crystals. The water flowing over them created beautiful music that filled the air. She wore a simple white dress that made her blue skin look even more radiant than usual. "Captain Chen," she said, standing up quickly when she saw him. "Thank you for coming." "Please call me Marcus," he said with a smile. "We're engaged now, remember?" Princess Zarathel blushed, her blue cheeks turning a darker shade. "I still can't believe this is real. For 25 years, no one has been able to touch me without pain, and you make it seem so easy." Marcus sat down on the crystal bench beside the fountain.
"Oh,
"May I ask you something personal?" She nodded and sat down next to him, careful to leave some space between them. "What does it feel like when you touch other people?" Marcus asked gently. The princess was quiet for a moment, staring at the singing fountain. "It's like drowning in their worst feelings," she said finally. "When I touched Duke Vexstar during our meeting last month, I felt his disgust for me, but also his fear of his father's anger, his worry about his gambling debts, his sadness about his dead mother. All of it became so strong that he couldn't think about anything else." "That must be terrible for you too," Marcus said. "It is," she admitted. "I feel everything they feel, but worse. I've learned to avoid touching people because I can't handle their pain on top of my own." Marcus reached out slowly and took her hand. Again, he felt that strange sense of calm wash over him. What do you feel when you touch me? Princess Zarathal closed her golden eyes and concentrated. It's so different, she whispered. Your emotions are ... everywhere. Happy, sad, worried, excited, angry, peaceful, all at the same time. It's like trying to pick up water with a net. Can't grab onto any single feeling long enough to make it stronger. Humans are complicated, Marcus said with a laugh. We rarely feel just one thing at a time. But how do you function? She asked, amazed. How do you make decisions when you feel everything at once? Practice, I guess, Marcus said. We learn to live with contradictions. I can be happy about our engagement and worried about the political consequences at the same time. I can be angry at how people have treated you and peaceful when I hold your hand. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crystal fountain's music. Finally, Princess Zarathal spoke again. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really propose to me? Her golden eyes searched his face. You barely know me. You're risking your career, and possibly your life. The other council. Members already hate humans enough. This will make things worse for your people. Marcus thought carefully before answering. Do you want the diplomatic answer or the honest answer? It's the honest one? I proposed because I was angry, Marcus said. Simply. I watched 7 different aliens treat you like garbage just because you're different. I've seen that kind of prejudice before on Earth, and it always makes me furious. But there was something else too. What? When you asked if I would be your husband, there was so much hope in your voice, so much courage. You had been rejected and humiliated over and over, but you were still brave enough to ask one more time. That kind of strength impressed me. Princess Zarathal felt tears forming in her eyes. You think I'm strong? I think you're the strongest person I've ever met, Marcus said honestly. Anyone else would have given up years ago. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Princess Zarathal spent every day together. He taught her about Earth and human culture. She showed him the wonders of Vorthok science and art. Slowly, they began to understand each other. Marcus learned that the princess was incredibly intelligent. She spoke 12 different galactic languages and had studied the history and culture of every council species. She had been preparing her whole life to be a ruler. Even though everyone told her she would never get the chance, Princess Zarathal learned that humans were far more complex than other species believed. Marcus could be gentle and violent, logical, and emotional, selfish, and selfless, sometimes all in the same conversation. It fascinated her. Your people are living contradictions, she told him one evening as they walked through the palace library. It's probably why your ability doesn't work on me, Marcus replied. You can't amplify chaos that's already at maximum level. But their growing friendship was causing problems throughout the galaxy. News of the engagement had spread to every council world, and the reactions were not good. The Kethmer hegemony has filed a formal complaint, reported Ambassador Tizara during a council session that Marcus was forced to attend. They say this marriage violates the genetic purity accords. What genetic purity accords? Marcus asked. The agreements that prevent mixing between incompatible species, explained Counselor Zentok. Humans and Vorthok have never attempted interbreeding before. We don't know what kind of offspring you might produce. With respect, Counselor, Marcus said, trying to keep his temper under control. That's our business, not yours. It becomes everyone's business when it affects galactic stability, Tessera replied coldly. Several member species are threatening to leave the council if this marriage is allowed to proceed. Marcus felt his anger rising, but he forced himself to stay calm. Let me understand this correctly. You're saying that Princess Zarathal should remain unmarried and lose her throne, because some species don't like the idea of her marrying a human. We're saying that some unions are unnatural, said Counselor Vrektos, a large, hairy alien with 6 arms. Your species has been in the council for less than 10 years. You don't understand our traditions. I understand prejudice when I see it, Marcus shot back. The argument continued for hours, but Marcus knew he was fighting a losing battle. The council members had already made up their minds. They would find any excuse to stop the marriage. That night, Marcus found Princess Zarathal crying in her private chambers. She was sitting on her bed holding a small crystal that projected images of her childhood. They're going to stop the wedding, aren't they? She said without looking up. Marcus sat down beside her. Some of them want to. Has the final say for now, she said sadly. But if enough council members oppose the marriage, even he won't be able to protect us. Marcus took her hand gently. Zarathel, I need to tell you something. This engagement started as an act of defiance, but it's become something more for me. She looked up at him with her golden eyes. What do you mean? I mean, I'm falling in love with you, Marcus said quietly. These past 2 weeks have been the happiest of my life. You're brilliant, kind, funny, and stronger than any warrior I've ever known. If we can't get married, it won't be because I don't want to. It will be because they won't let us. Princess Zarathal felt something she had never experienced before, pure joy. She leaned forward and kissed Marcus softly on the lips. When they separated, both of them were smiling. I love you too, she whispered. Whatever happens, I want you to know that. But their moment of happiness was interrupted by urgent knocking on the door. Princess Captain Chen called a voice from the hallway. The Emperor demands to see you both immediately. Marcus and Zarathal exchanged worried looks. Emergency meetings in the middle of the night were never good news. They found Emperor Carthal in his private throne room, surrounded by his advisors. His blue skin was dark with anger, and his golden eyes blazed with fury. Father, what's wrong? Princess Zarathel asked. I've just received word from the Kethmer hegemony, the Emperor said grimly. They've given me an ultimatum. Either I cancel your engagement and disown you publicly, or they will cut all trade agreements with Vorthok. They've also convinced 3 other species to join their boycott. Marcus felt his heart sink. The Vorthok Empire depended on trade with other council species. A boycott would destroy their economy. How long do we have? Marcus asked. 7 days, the Emperor replied. They want a public announcement in 7 days, or the boycott begins immediately. Princess Zarathal stood up straighter. Father, you can't give in to their demands. If you do, they'll know they can control you whenever they want. And if I don't, our people will starve, the Emperor said sadly. I'm sorry, my daughter. I know you've found happiness with Captain Chen, but I have to think about the entire empire. Marcus felt rage building inside him, but this time he didn't try to control it. He was tired of watching bullies. Part 3. The test of fire. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never held so many spectators. Representatives from 43 different species filled the massive chamber, while billions more watched the live broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see the compatibility test between the human and the cursed. Vorthok Princess. Marcus stood in the center of the hall wearing his best Terran military uniform. His dark hair was perfectly combed, and his face showed calm confidence. But inside, his heart was racing. Everything depended on the next few hours. Princess Zarathel stood beside him in her formal royal robes. The blue and silver fabric made her crystalline skin glow under the bright lights. She looked beautiful and terrified at the same time. Citizens of the galaxy, announced Supreme Counselor Vexahan from his floating platform. We are gathered today to witness the compatibility test between Captain Marcus Chen of Earth and Princess Zarathol of Vorthok. The Kethmer hegemony has challenged this union, claiming it violates the natural order of our civilization. In the VIP section, General Kethfer of the hegemony sat with his advisors. The tall, gray-skinned alien wore military decorations that covered half his chest. His cold blue eyes watched Marcus with obvious hatred. The test will consist of 3 parts, Vexahan continued. Physical compatibility, mental harmony, and combat effectiveness. If the couple fails any part, the marriage will be forbidden, and Princess Zarathal will lose her right to the Vorthok throne. Marcus had spent the past week preparing for this moment. He and Zarathal had discovered something amazing during their training sessions. When she touched him during intense emotions, something unexpected happened. Instead of absorbing and amplifying his negative feelings, she seemed to absorb his strength and determination. For the first test, announced the Supreme Counselor, Princess Zarathal will demonstrate her condition on a volunteer from the audience. A young Zentoran stepped forward nervously. It was a low-ranking diplomat who had been promised extra pay for participating. Princess Zarathal walked over to him slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the volunteer. "This will hurt," she placed her hand gently on his arm. The effect was immediate and terrible. Zentoran screamed and fell to his knees, his body shaking with overwhelming emotion. Tears streamed down his face as he experienced every negative feeling he had ever buried. Fear, sadness, anger, shame, all amplified to unbearable levels. "Please," he begged, "make it stop." Princess Zarathal quickly pulled her hand away. The Zentoran collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. Medical teams rushed to help him. "As you can see," General Kethfer announced loudly, "the princess's curse affects all normal beings. No civilized species should have to endure such torture. In marriage, now," said Supreme Counselor Vexahan, "Captain Chen will demonstrate his claimed immunity." Marcus walked over to Princess Zarathal. The hall was completely silent as he reached out and took both of her hands in his. Everyone expected him to scream and fall down like the Zen Turon. Instead, Marcus smiled. "How do you feel, Captain?" asked the Supreme Counselor. "Perfectly fine," Marcus replied. His voice was steady and calm. "Actually, I feel stronger than usual." Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. "This shouldn't be possible." "For the second test," Vexahan announced, "we will examine mental compatibility through the Vorthok Mindlink ceremony." This was the part Marcus had been most worried about. The Mindlink would temporarily connect his thoughts with Zarathal's S, allowing them to share emotions and memories. If it worked, it would prove they were truly compatible. If it failed, it could damage both their minds permanently. An elderly Vorthok priest stepped forward carrying an ancient crystal device. "This sacred artifact has been used for marriage ceremonies for over 1,000 years, he explained. Both participants must touch it at the same time while opening their minds to each other. Marcus and Princess Zarathal approached the crystal together. It was beautiful, a clear, multifaceted gem that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of light. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. "Ready," Marcus replied. They placed their hands on the crystal simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal began to glow brighter and brighter until it was almost too bright to look at. Marcus felt Zarathal's mind touch his, and the experience was incredible. He could feel her thoughts, her memories, her emotions, as if they were his own. He saw her lonely childhood, the pain of constant rejection, the fear that she would never find love. But he also felt her strength, her intelligence, and her deep capacity for compassion. Zarathal experienced Marcus's memories too. She saw his childhood on Earth, his military training, his anger at injustice, and his fierce loyalty to those he cared about. But most importantly, she felt his love for her, pure, strong, completely without reservation. The crystal's light suddenly exploded outward, filling the entire hall with brilliant radiance. When it faded, Marcus and Zarathal were still. Standing, still connected, but now they were surrounded by a soft golden glow that seemed to come from within them. "Impossible," breathed General Kethfer. "The crystal only glows like that for perfect matches. No interspecies couple has ever achieved such harmony." The audience erupted in amazed chatter. Even the Supreme Counselor looked shocked. "The final test," Vexahan announced after the noise died down, "will be combat effectiveness. If Captain Chen and Princess Zarathal can function as an effective fighting unit, their compatibility will be proven beyond doubt." This was what Marcus had been preparing for. He had studied the Kethmer fighting style extensively and discovered something interesting. They were incredibly skilled, but they relied on predictable patterns and overwhelming force. They had no experience fighting opponents who could adapt and improvise. "We will provide you with worthy opponents," General Kethfer said, with a cruel smile. "My personal guard will test your abilities." 3 massive Kethmer warriors entered the hall. Each one was nearly 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating and armed with energy weapons. They looked like they could tear Marcus apart with their bare hands. "The fight continues until one side surrenders or is unable to continue," the general announced. "No weapons are allowed for the human and princess. They must rely on their natural abilities only." Marcus took Princess Zarathal's hand as the warriors approached. "Remember what we practiced," he whispered. "I remember," she replied. "Trust and adaptation." The first warrior charged at Marcus with incredible speed. But instead of trying to dodge, Marcus did something unexpected. He grabbed Zarathal's hand, tighter, and rolled directly toward the attacker. The moment their hands connected more firmly, something amazing happened. Marcus felt Zarathal's ability activate. But instead of absorbing negative emotions, she was reading the warrior's thoughts. Through his emotional state, she could sense exactly what he was planning to do. "Left," she whispered urgently. Marcus rolled left, just as the warrior's massive fist smashed into the floor where he had been. The alien looked confused. His attack should have connected easily. The second warrior tried to flank them, but Zarathal was already reading his intentions. "Behind us, low sweep." Marcus jumped at exactly the right moment, avoiding the warrior's attempt to knock him down. While he was in the air, he kicked the alien in the side of the head, stunning him. The third warrior tried a different approach, firing his energy weapon at them. But Zarathal could sense his targeting decisions through his emotional focus. "Duck! Roll right, jump, now," she called out rapidly. Marcus followed her directions perfectly, moving like he was dancing to music only they could hear. The energy blasts missed him completely, while he got closer and closer to the shooter. The audience watched in amazement as the small human and the cursed princess moved together like they shared one mind. Every attack was predicted and countered. Every movement flowed into the next with perfect timing. General Kethfer stood up angrily. "This is impossible. They're using some kind of technology to cheat." But the combat monitors showed no artificial enhancements. Marcus and Zarathal were winning through pure skill and teamwork. The first warrior recovered and tried to grab Marcus from behind. But Zarathal sensed the attack and called out a warning. Marcus ducked low and swept the warrior's legs, sending the massive alien crashing to the ground. The second warrior charged at Princess Zarathal, thinking she would be an easy target. This was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. As the alien reached for her, Marcus grabbed both the warrior's wrists and pulled him forward while Zarathal stepped aside. The warrior's own momentum sent him flying into the wall. The third warrior, seeing his companions defeated, fired desperately at both targets. But Marcus and Zarathal moved together in perfect synchronization, dodging every shot while closing the distance. Finally, Marcus got close enough to grab the weapon and crush it with his bare hands. All three Kethmer warriors lay defeated on the floor, breathing heavily but uninjured. Marcus and Zarathal stood together in the center of the hall, still glowing with the golden light from the crystal ceremony. The audience was completely silent, shocked by what they had just witnessed. "Honored council members," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the huge hall, "we have passed all three tests. Our physical." Part 4. The revolution begins. General Kethfer stepped into the arena like a predator hunting prey. His gray skin was covered in battle scars, and his military decorations gleamed under the bright lights. At nearly 9 feet tall and weighing 400 pounds of solid muscle, he looked like he could crush Marcus with one hand. "This will be brief," the general announced to the crowd. "I will show everyone what happens when inferior species try to rise above their station." Marcus stood calmly in the center of the arena, looking tiny compared to his massive opponent, but his dark eyes were focused and determined. Princess Zarathal watched from the edge of the fighting area, her hands clasped tightly together. "You ready to face your betters, human?"
Act correct, General,"
Kethfer asked mockingly. "I'm ready to face a bully," Marcus replied simply. The general's face darkened with anger. He activated his personal energy shield and drew his ceremonial combat blade, a curved weapon that glowed with deadly energy. "Begin," announced Supreme Counselor Vexahan. General Kethfer charged forward with surprising speed for such a large being. His blade swept through the air where Marcus had been standing just a moment before. But the human had already rolled away, moving with fluid grace. "Stand still and fight like a warrior," the general roared. "No thanks," Marcus said, dodging another massive swing. "I prefer to fight smart." What the audience couldn't see was the silent communication happening between Marcus and Princess Zarathal. She was reading the general's emotional state and intentions, and sending that information to Marcus through their mental link. He's getting frustrated, Zarathal thought too. Marcus. His next attack will be overhead, then a left sweep. Marcus ducked under the overhead strike and jumped over the sweeping blade exactly as predicted. The general was moving so fast and violently that he nearly lost his balance. Impossible. General, Kethfer snarled. You cannot predict my movements. I don't have to predict them, Marcus said with a smile. I just have to react faster than you can think. For 10 minutes, the pattern continued. The general attacked with brutal force and perfect technique, but Marcus seemed to know exactly where every strike would land. He dodged, rolled, and jumped, with impossible timing, never getting hit, but never striking back. The audience began to murmur with confusion. Some aliens started to cheer for the underdog human who was making the mighty general look clumsy. Fight back, coward, General Kethfer screamed, his gray skin turning darker with rage. Not yet, Marcus replied calmly. I'm still learning your patterns. This was Marcus's real strategy. He wasn't just avoiding the general's attacks, he was studying them. Every movement, every decision, every tactical choice was being analyzed and catalogued. Through Zarathal's emotional reading, he could see not just what the general was doing, but why he was doing it. General Kethfer was a traditional Kethmer warrior. He had trained for decades in classical combat forms that emphasize power, precision, and overwhelming force. But those same forms made him predictable to someone who understood how to read them. He's getting tired, Zarathal observed. His emotional control is slipping. He's about to make a mistake. Marcus saw his opportunity. The general raised his blade for another overhead strike. Marcus did something unexpected. Instead of dodging away, he stepped forward and to the side, getting inside the general's reach where the large alien couldn't use his weapon effectively. Before General Kethfer could react, Marcus grabbed his weapon arm and used the alien's own momentum to throw him across the arena. The general crashed into the wall with tremendous force. His energy shield flickering and failing, the crowd gasped in amazement. A human had just thrown a Kethmer general like he was a child. How did you? The general started to ask. But Marcus was already moving, Leverage Marcus explained as he dodged the general's wild swing. You're stronger than me, but strength without control is just wasted energy. Now Marcus went on the offensive. He moved around the general like a dancer, striking at pressure points and joints that Princess Zarathal identified through her emotional sensing. Each hit was precise and calculated. Designed to wear down his opponent without causing permanent damage, General Kethfer tried to activate his backup weapons. But Marcus was always one step ahead. When the general reached for his energy pistol, Marcus kicked his hand away. When he tried to call for help from his guards, Marcus struck a nerve cluster that temporarily paralyzed his throat. This is impossible, General Kethfer gasped. You're reading my mind. No, Marcus said, landing a perfect strike to the general's solar plexus that left him doubled over in pain. I'm reading your heart. The fight was essentially over, but Marcus wasn't finished yet. He had something important to say, and he wanted the entire galaxy to hear it. General Kethfer, Marcus announced loudly, you represent everything that's wrong with the current galactic order. You believe that strength comes from size and weapons and intimidation, but real strength comes from adaptation, cooperation, and accepting differences? The general tried one last desperate attack, but Marcus caught his wrist and twisted gently until the weapon fell from his hand. You think humans are inferior because we're new to the council? Marcus continued. Think Princess Zarathal is defective because she's different. But you're wrong about both of us. Marcus stepped back and helped the general stand up. The alien looked confused by this gesture of mercy. The truth is, General, your way of thinking is obsolete. The galaxy is changing, and species like yours are going to have to change with it or be left behind. General Kethfer's face was dark with humiliation and rage. You think defeating me in combat proves anything? Kethmer hegemony has fleets of warships? We could destroy your primitive Earth whenever we choose. Could you? Marcus asked with a dangerous smile. Are you sure about that? Something in Marcus's tone made everyone in the hall pay closer attention. What do you mean, Supreme Counselor? Vexahan asked. Marcus reached into his uniform and pulled out a small communication device. Computer, display file Delta 7. A holographic screen appeared above the arena, showing what looked like intelligence reports and military assessments. The audience leaned forward to read the information. For the past 6 months, Marcus announced, the Terran Diplomatic Corps has been conducting a detailed analysis of galactic military capabilities. What we found was very interesting. The hologram showed fleet positions, weapon specifications, and tactical assessments for every major species in the Council. The Kethmer hegemony claims to have the strongest military in the galaxy, Marcus continued. But their fleets are spread across 40 different systems. Their command structure is rigid and slow to adapt, and their tactics haven't changed in over a century. General Kethver looked increasingly uncomfortable as Marcus continued his presentation.
More.
Importantly, we discovered something else during our research. The Kethmer hegemony has been secretly building illegal weapons and planning attacks on species they consider inferior. The hologram displayed intercepted communications and spy satellite images showing hidden weapons factories and military buildup. This is fabricated, General Kethver shouted. Human lies and propaganda. Computer, play audio file. Kethver Alpha, Marcus commanded. A recording began to play. General Kethver's own voice discussing plans to attack human colonies and eliminate genetic contamination from the galaxy. The hall erupted in shocked gasps and angry shouts. Several council members stood up and began demanding explanations. How did you obtain these recordings? Supreme Counselor Vexahan asked. Marcus smiled. The same way we learned about the general's combat techniques. We paid attention, we adapted, and we worked with allies who shared our values. What allies? General Kethver demanded. Computer, display file, Echo 9. The hologram changed to show a star map with dozens of systems highlighted in blue. Over the past year, human diplomats have been quietly making contact with species and individuals that the current council system has rejected or marginalized, Marcus explained.
Disabled Xenoranzi who were cast out of their families.
Elderly Kitar who were considered past their usefulness. Hybrid offspring from mixed relationships, who were denied citizenship rights. Princess Zarathul gasped as she realized the scope of what Marcus was revealing. We found representatives from 23 different species who had been labeled as defective or inferior by the current galactic order, Marcus continued. Know what we discovered? They're some of the most intelligent, creative, and capable individuals in the galaxy. The hologram showed faces and profiles of hundreds of beings from across known space. We offered them something the Council never did: acceptance, respect, and a chance to contribute their unique abilities to a better future. This is a conspiracy against galactic stability, General Kethver accused. This is evolution, Marcus corrected. The old system based on genetic purity and rigid hierarchy is dying. A new system based on diversity and cooperation is being born. Supreme Counselor Vexahan looked deeply troubled. Captain Chen, are you suggesting that Earth is forming a rival alliance to the Galactic Council? Not rival, Marcus said. Replacement. The hall exploded into chaos. Council members shouted at each other in dozens of different languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Part 5. The New Paradigm. 3 weeks after Marcus's revelations in the council chamber, the galaxy was at war. But it wasn't the kind of war anyone had expected. The Kethmer hegemony had mobilized their massive fleets and attacked human colonies, just as General Kethver had threatened. Their ships were powerful, their weapons devastating, and their tactics proven by centuries of conquest. By all logical calculations, they should have crushed Earth's defenses within days. Instead, they found themselves fighting ghosts. Admiral Zixara stood on the bridge of the hegemony flagship Dominant Fist, staring at tactical displays that made no sense. His fleet had just spent 6 hours hunting a small group of human ships through the asteroid fields of the Kepler system. Port, he barked at his navigation officer. The human vessels keep disappearing from our sensors. Admiral, the officer, replied nervously. Every time we lock onto their position, they vanish and reappear somewhere else. That's impossible. Human technology is primitive compared to ours. But Admiral Zixthera was wrong about human technology. What he was seeing wasn't advanced science. It was advanced tactics. The human ships were using the asteroids as cover, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated, and they weren't fighting alone. Admiral called the communications officer. We're receiving strange signals from the asteroid field. It sounds like ... singing. The bridge fell silent as haunting melodies filled the air. The songs came from Kitar refugees who had been hiding in the asteroids for years after being exiled by their own people. But now they were working with the humans, using their natural telepathic abilities to coordinate ship movements across vast distances. How are they doing this? Admiral Zixthera demanded. His science officer looked up from her console with confusion. Sir, the humans seem to have formed some kind of psychic network with multiple species. We're detecting Kitar telepathy, Vorthok, emotional projection, and at least 6 other types of mental communication all working together. Before the Admiral could respond, his ship shuddered under weapons fire. But the attack hadn't come from the human ships. It had come from his own fleet. What's happening? He shouted. Sir, the tactical officer reported in shock. 3 of our destroyer captains are reporting that their crews have mutinied. They're saying the hybrid crew members have taken control of the ships. Admiral Zixthera felt a chill run down his spine. He had forgotten that many Kethmer ships carried crew members from other species, beings with mixed heritage, who had been considered barely acceptable for military service. Now those same crew members were turning their ships against the hegemony fleet. Meanwhile, on the surface of the planet Vorthok Prime, Princess Zarathal stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace, coordinating the resistance through her psychic connection with Marcus and their growing network of allies. The Kethmer Third Fleet has broken off their attack on the Zentara system, reported Commander Veltar, a disabled Zentaran who had become one of their most effective military strategists. Their own crews are refusing to fight. What about the attacks on Earth? Princess Zarathal asked. Unsuccessful, replied Dr. Chiksara, an elderly Kitar scientist who had been developing new communication technologies. The humans evacuated their colonies before the attacks began. Every planet the Kethmer forces reached was empty. Marcus's voice came through their psychic link from his location on a human command ship near. Earth Phase 2 is working perfectly. They're chasing shadows while we're building the real resistance. The real resistance was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of massive fleets and powerful weapons, it relied on networks, information, and the simple power of beings who had been told they were worthless, proving that they weren't. On the mining world of Kappa 7, hybrid workers had taken control of the facilities that produced rare metals needed for hegemony weapons. On the research station of Beta Prime, elderly scientists who had been forced into retirement were sharing their knowledge with young rebels. On dozens of worlds, the defective and inferior were rising up together. But the most powerful weapon in their arsenal wasn't military, it was truth. Computer, begin galaxy-wide broadcast. Princess Zarathal commanded, across the galaxy. On every communication channel and every public screen, the same image appeared. Princess Zarathal and Marcus standing together in the Vorthok war room, surrounded by representatives from 20 different species. Citizens of the galaxy, Princess Zarathal began, her voice reaching billions of beings. We speak to you not as conquerors, but as your neighbors who have been rejected and forgotten. Marcus stepped forward. For too long, the galactic order has been based on the idea that some beings are better than others, that some species are more valuable, that some individuals don't deserve the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. Behind them, the representatives began to tell their stories. A Zentoran female spoke about being abandoned by her family because she was born with a physical disability. A young Kitar male described being cast out because he was too young to be considered wise. A hybrid child talked about never being allowed to attend school because her parents were from different species. One by one, they shared their experiences of rejection, discrimination, and cruelty. But they also shared something else there. Accomplishments, their dreams, and their vision for a better future. "We don't want to destroy the galaxy," Princess Zarathal continued. "We want to heal it. We want to build a civilization where every being is valued for their unique gifts, not judged by narrow definitions of perfection." The broadcast continued for hours, with beings from across the galaxy sharing their stories. Many were crying. As they watched, others were angry, but most importantly, they were listening, in the council chambers on the capital world. Supreme Counselor Vexahan watched the broadcast with growing alarm. His aide rushed into the room with reports from across council space. "Sir, we're receiving word of peaceful demonstrations on 47 worlds," the aide reported. "Beings are gathering in public squares, holding signs calling for equality and acceptance." "What about the military situation?" Vexahan asked. "The Kethmer fleets are ... struggling, sir? They've lost more ships to mutiny than to enemy fire, and the human tactics are proving impossible to counter." Supreme Counselor Vexahan knew the old order was crumbling. The question now was whether something better could rise from its ashes. The decisive moment came, when Admiral Zixathara's flagship finally cornered a group of human ships near Earth itself. This time, there were no asteroids to hide behind, no surprise attacks possible. It should have been the end of the human resistance. Instead, something unprecedented happened. As the hegemony fleet prepared to fire, hundreds of ships from dozens of different species emerged from hyperspace around Earth. But these weren't military vessels, they were civilian ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, and research vessels. All of them were crewed by the unwanted beings from across the galaxy. "This is Dr. Chixara of the research vessel New Hope," came a transmission. "We are here to protect our human allies." "This is Captain Veltar of the transport Second Chance," called another voice. "We stand with those who accepted us when our own people would not." One by one, hundreds of ships declared their solidarity with the human cause. They had come not to fight, but to bear witness. If Admiral Zixthera wanted to destroy the humans, he would have to destroy all of them. The Admiral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His powerful fleet was outnumbered 10-1 by a ragtag collection of civilian vessels whose crews should have been scattered across the galaxy in exile and disgrace. "Admiral," his communications officer reported quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from half our fleet. The crews are saying they won't fire on civilians." Admiral Zixthera realized that the war was over, and his side had lost. Not through superior firepower or better technology, but through something far more powerful: the simple idea that every being deserved dignity and respect. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered sadly. "Open a communication channel to the human commander." Marcus's face appeared on the Admiral's screen. The human looked tired, but determined. "Admiral Zixthera," Marcus said respectfully, "we don't want to destroy your fleet or your people. We want to offer you the same thing we've offered everyone else: a chance to be part of something better." "What are your terms?" the Admiral asked. "No terms," Marcus replied. "No surrender ceremonies or punishment, just a choice. You can return to the old ways of thinking, or you can help us build a new galaxy where everyone belongs." 6 months later, Princess Zarathal and Marcus stood together in the same council chamber where their journey had begun. But everything had changed. The old hierarchical seating was gone, replaced by circular arrangements where every species sat as equals. The rigid protocols had been simplified. Most importantly, the chamber was filled with beings who would never have been allowed inside under the old system. "Do you, Princess Zarathal of Vorthok, take Marcus Chen of Earth as your bonded partner in marriage and in the leadership of our new galactic alliance?" asked the officiator, a hybrid individual whose mixed heritage had once made her an outcast. "Do, Princess," Zerothal replied, her golden eyes shining with joy.